The War Council chamber aboard the dreadnought Terminus hummed with the quiet confidence of inevitable victory. General Krath'zon of the Vexalian Empire stood before the tactical hologram, his forearms crossed in satisfaction as he surveyed the planet below. Earth, the third rock from an unremarkable star, home to the self-proclaimed apex species that called themselves humans. Ridiculous, Krath'zon muttered, his mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among his kind. These primitives actually believe they rule their own world. Commander Velris, his second-in-command, leaned closer to the display. Her scales shimmered in the blue light of the hologram. Sir, our preliminary scans confirm their military capabilities are laughable. Chemical projectile weapons, crude aircraft. They still use combustion engines for ground transport. And their wildlife? Krath'zon asked, already knowing the answer but wanting to hear it confirmed. Velris tapped a claw against her datapad. Categorized and assessed, nothing above Class 2 threat level. Their largest predators, these lions, tigers, bears, whatever absurd names they have, would barely challenge a Vexalian youngling. Most of their fauna flee at the first sign of danger. Evolution has made them soft. Krath'zon's laugh echoed through the chamber. Oh, how sweet this would be. 300 cycles of conquest across 47 star systems, and not once had they encountered resistance worth remembering. The Vexalian Empire crushed opposition like insects beneath their boots. This would be no different. Prepare the ground assault, Krath'zon commanded. We descend at dawn, their time. I want our forces positioned across all major continents. Show these humans what real predators look like. Sir, Velris hesitated, her tongue flicking nervously. There is one anomaly in the biological database. A creature designated as Mellivora capensis, common name honey badger. The scanning algorithms flagged it as unusual. Unusual how? The combat predictive software cannot generate a reliable threat assessment. Every simulation produces contradictory results. Krath'zon waved a dismissive hand. Your machines malfunction. A creature weighing 11 kilograms? Please, my personal armor weighs more than that. Flag it as irrelevant and proceed with invasion protocols. Velris bowed. As you command, General. The next morning, Krath'zon stood in the African savanna, breathing in the alien air of Earth. Dry, warm, unremarkable. Around him, 2,000 Vexalian shock troopers formed perfect ranks, their plasma rifles charged and ready. Overhead, gunships circled like mechanical vultures, their weapon systems locked on the scattered human settlements in the distance. Attention, primitives! Krath'zon's voice boomed across the landscape, amplified by his suit's external speakers. You are hereby subjects of the Vexalian Empire. Surrender your arms, your resources, and your autonomy. Resistance is futile. We have conquered worlds you cannot even imagine. We have broken armies that would crush your entire species in an afternoon. We are the apex. We are the hunters. We are... Something moved in the tall grass. Krath'zon paused mid-speech, his tactical visor zooming in on the disturbance. Small, low to the ground. Probably some timid herbivore fleeing the noise. He almost continued his speech when the creature emerged fully into view. It was, without question, the most unimpressive thing Krath'zon had ever seen. Roughly the size of a Vexalian infant. Stocky body, short legs, a stripe of white fur running from its head down its back, contrasting with black and gray. Small, beady eyes that should have conveyed fear or caution or some survival instinct. They did not. The creature, this honey badger according to his visor's identification tag, sat down approximately 20 meters from 2,000 armed alien invaders and began grooming its paw. Sir, Velris whispered over the private comm channel, that's the anomaly, the one the system couldn't assess. It's cleaning itself, Krath'zon replied flatly. During an invasion, it's cleaning itself. The honey badger, apparently satisfied with its paw, looked up at the assembled army. Its eyes met Krath'zon's. The general felt something he hadn't experienced in 70 cycles of military service. Unease. "Trooper Zix," Krath'zon snapped. "Eliminate that creature. I will not be mocked by local wildlife during a planetary conquest." Trooper Zix stepped forward, raising his plasma rifle. The weapon hummed to life, its charge indicator glowing bright green. He aimed carefully, professionally, at center mass. The honey badger yawned. Zix fired. The plasma bolt, capable of punching through reinforced steel, screamed through the air at supersonic speed. It should have vaporized the small animal instantly. Should have left nothing but scorched earth and a brief, unpleasant smell. The honey badger moved. Not quickly. Not with any apparent urgency. It simply wasn't there anymore when the bolt arrived. The plasma impacted the ground, kicking up a spray of dirt and superheated soil. The honey badger was 3 meters to the left, examining a rock with mild interest. "What?" Krath'zon said slowly. "Was that?" "Sir, I had a clear shot," Zix protested. "I don't understand how—" "Fire again!" Zix fired. Then fired again. Then emptied his entire power cell in a sustained burst of plasma fire that turned the surrounding grassland into a smoldering crater. When the smoke cleared, the honey badger sat on a termite mound, absolutely unbothered, munching on something it had found in the dirt. "Impossible," Velrus breathed. "The reaction time required to dodge those shots. Our computers can barely track plasma bolts. How did it—" "It's luck," Krath'zon declared, though his voice lacked conviction. "Random chance. Statistics. Velrus, deploy the hunting drones, something more precise." 3 spherical drones, detached from a nearby gunship, their surfaces bristling with sensors and micro-weapons. They spread out in a triangular formation, surrounding the honey badger from different angles. Their targeting systems locked on, red laser dots dancing across the creature's fur. The honey badger looked at one drone, then another, then the third. It blinked. All 3 drones fired simultaneously. Armor-piercing flechettes, guided micro-missiles, and concentrated laser fire converged on a single point from 3 different vectors. There was literally nowhere for the creature to go. Basic geometry prevented escape. The honey badger dug. Not a desperate scramble, not a panicked flight response. It just started digging. Casually. Like this was something it had been planning to do anyway. By the time the weapons fire arrived, there was a hole, and the honey badger was not in it because it was, inexplicably, behind Trooper Zix, eating his rations. Zix looked down. The honey badger looked up. Their eyes met. The trooper screamed and tried to run, tripped over his own feet, and crashed into 3 of his squad mates. "This is absurd!" Krath'zon roared. "It's a small mammal! We've destroyed entire battle fleets! We've reduced civilizations to ash, and you're telling me we cannot hit one tiny Earth creature?" As if in response, the honey badger finished Zix's rations, belched with remarkable volume for something its size, and trotted directly toward the main formation. 2,000 Vexalian shock troopers, each armed with weapons that could level buildings, watched a honey badger approach with the confidence of a creature that had never heard the word fear and wouldn't care about its definition if it had. "Fall back," Krath'zon ordered. "Sir?" Velrus couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I said fall back. Maintain distance. This is clearly some kind of advanced Earth defense system, a biological weapon disguised as native fauna. They knew we were coming." The honey badger picked up speed. Not running exactly. More like a purposeful waddle. A waddle with intent. The front ranks of Vexalian troopers retreated. Then the middle ranks. Then everyone was backing up, 2,000 professional soldiers in full retreat from 11 kilograms of mammal. "Gunships," Krath'zon commanded. "Orbital strike coordinates on that creature, now." "Sir, that's excessive force for—" "Do it!" The lead gunship angled its main cannon downward. Enough firepower to obliterate a city block charged in its barrel. Targeting computers calculated trajectory, wind speed, planetary rotation, every variable accounted for. The honey badger stopped walking and sat down again. Krath'zon felt his blood chill. That thing was looking at the gunship, at him, at his entire army. And in its small, beady eyes, he saw something that would haunt his dreams for cycles to come. Amusement. Fire, he whispered. The gunship's main cannon discharged with a sound like reality tearing in half. The beam of concentrated energy could melt through a battleship's hull. It struck the ground where the honey badger sat with apocalyptic force, creating an explosion that registered on seismic monitors across the continent. For a moment, silence. Smoke billowed from a crater 3 meters deep and 10 meters wide. Superheated glass glittered at the edges where sand had fused under incredible temperature. "Target eliminated," the gunship pilot reported. "Confirmed vaporization. Nothing could have survived." The honey badger walked out of the crater. Its fur was slightly singed. One ear looked a bit crispy. Otherwise, it appeared completely fine. Better than fine. It looked annoyed now, which was somehow infinitely worse than amused. "Sir," Velrus said quietly, "I'm reading something on the biological scanners. The creature's cortisol levels. They're dropping." "Dropping?" Krath'zon turned to her. "You mean it's calming down?" "No, sir. I mean it wasn't stressed before. Now I think it's getting bored." The honey badger yawned again, showcasing teeth that seemed far too large for its size. Then it started walking toward them again, faster this time. "Retreat!" Krath'zon didn't care anymore about dignity or protocol. "Full retreat! Back to the ships! Move!" 2,000 Vexalian troopers, the finest warriors the Empire had produced, ran. They ran like their lives depended on it, because increasingly, they believed it did. The honey badger pursued, not hurrying, just maintaining that same purposeful waddle. Trooper Mex stumbled, his boot catching on a root. He fell hard, his rifle skittering away. The honey badger was on him in seconds. "Help!" Mex screamed. "It's going for my throat! Wait! What is it doing?" The honey badger had climbed onto Mex's chest and was staring directly into his eyes from a distance of perhaps 5 centimeters. Its breath smelled, according to Mex's later report, like death and fermented fruit. It tilted its head, examining the alien soldier with what could only be described as scientific curiosity. Then it sneezed directly in Mex's face and wandered off toward a nearby tree. Mex lay there, traumatized, until his squad mates dragged him back to the transport ships. Krath'zon stood in the boarding ramp of his command shuttle, watching the honey badger in the distance. It had found a beehive in that tree, and was currently being stung by hundreds of angry bees, while it devoured honey, larvae, and apparently some of the bees themselves. The stings didn't seem to bother it even slightly. "General," Velrus approached carefully, "the troops are asking, are we retreating from Earth?" "No," Krath'zon said slowly, his mind racing. "We're conducting a tactical withdrawal to reassess the threat level. It's one animal, sir." "Is it?" Krath'zon turned to face her. "Is it really just one animal, Commander? Or is it a message?" "A message. Think about it. We arrive to conquer this planet, and within minutes we encounter a creature that cannot be killed, cannot be intimidated, and doesn't even register our advanced weapons as threats. A creature that our combat algorithms cannot predict, that dodges plasma fire, that survives orbital bombardment. And then, after all that, it loses interest in us because we're not worth its time." Velrus's scales had gone pale. "You think the humans did this deliberately? Engineered it as a weapon?" "Worse," Krath'zon said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think it evolved here naturally. I think Earth is so hostile, so competitive, so absolutely brutal that this honey badger is what survival looks like on this planet. Not the apex predator, just a thing that exists." He pulled up the Earth biological database on his datapad, scrolling through entries with increasing horror. Look at this. Hippopotamus kills more humans annually than their so-called apex predators. Cassowary, a bird that can disembowel with a single kick. Box jellyfish. Virtually invisible, toxin causes death in minutes. Mosquito kills hundreds of thousands through disease transmission. And the humans. He trailed off. What about the humans, sir? The humans call this place home. They thrive here. They're not just surviving this nightmare world, Velrus. They're the dominant species. They reached the top of the food chain on a planet where that honey badger is just considered a nuisance. In the distance, the honey badger had finished with the beehive and was now digging after something underground. Probably something venomous, knowing Earth's apparent philosophy of making everything as dangerous as possible. Sir, what are your orders? Krath'zon watched the honey badger for a long moment. It had excavated what appeared to be a snake, something with red and yellow bands that his visor identified as highly venomous. The snake struck the honey badger repeatedly. The honey badger ate it anyway. We leave, Krath'zon said finally. We leave and we mark this system as forbidden territory. And we pray to whatever gods are listening that humanity never develops faster than light travel. But, sir, the Council will demand an explanation. Our forces outnumber the human population in military personnel alone. Our technology is centuries ahead. We have orbital superiority, weapons superiority, numerical superiority. And they, Krath'zon gestured at the honey badger, which was now taking a nap in the sun after its snake breakfast, have that. Tell me, Commander, what stops humans from training those things, from breeding them, from pointing them at their enemies? Velrus had no answer. Prepare for orbital departure, Krath'zon ordered. All forces, immediate evacuation. Leave the observation satellites. I want to monitor this planet, but from a very, very safe distance. As the Vexalian fleet began its ascent through Earth's atmosphere, Krath'zon took one last look at the savanna below. The honey badger had woken from its nap and was watching the ships leave. Krath'zon could swear, though he knew it was impossible, that the damn thing was laughing. News of the failed invasion spread through the Vexalian Empire like wildfire. At first, there was disbelief, then demands for Krath'zon's court-martial. Then, when the combat footage was reviewed by High Command, there was silence. 3 days later, every major military power in the Empire received the same classified report. The honey badger footage had been analyzed by their top xenobiologists, combat strategists, and evolutionary theorists. Their conclusions were unanimous and terrifying. Earth was classified as a death world. Class 7. The highest rating in the Imperial database. A planet so hostile that its dominant species had developed space travel before developing the common sense to leave. Krath'zon sat in his quarters, reading the supplementary reports that kept flooding in. Human children kept snakes as pets. They domesticated wolves. They lived in proximity to creatures that could kill them daily and called it normal. They consumed the chemical compounds that plants produced specifically to poison them and called it spicy food. And they shared their world with honey badgers. A new message appeared on his datapad. From High Command. He opened it with trembling hands. General Krath'zon, in light of your tactical withdrawal from the Sol system and your comprehensive reporting on the biological hazards present, you are hereby commended for sound judgment. Earth is now designated Exclusion Zone Omega. All Imperial vessels are forbidden from approaching within 5 light years. Furthermore, recommendations have been approved to establish a monitoring network to alert us if humanity achieves faster than light capability. Good work, General. You may have saved the Empire. Krath'zon should have felt relief, vindication. Instead, he felt only a deep, existential dread. Because somewhere on that blue and green planet, rotating through space with complete indifference to his fear, a honey badger was doing honey badger things, eating venomous snakes, raiding beehives, fighting predators 10 times its size, surviving everything that planet could throw at it. And the humans, those terrifying, impossible humans, had learned to live alongside it. More than that, they had learned to thrive. 6 months after what would become known as the honey badger incident, the Vexalian Empire had successfully convinced itself that Earth was best left alone. The official report had been filed, classified, and buried under 17 layers of security clearance. General Krath'zon received his commendation, took an early retirement, and moved to a quiet agricultural colony where the most dangerous wildlife was a particularly aggressive pollinating insect. He thought he was done with Earth. He was wrong. The emergency summons came at 400 station time. Krath'zon's communicator blared with a priority override code reserved for imminent extinction level threats. He rolled out of his sleep pod, fumbled for the device, and croaked. "This better be worth interrupting my retirement." "General, this is Fleet Admiral Torvis. We have a situation." "I'm retired, Admiral. Situations are no longer my concern. It's about Earth." Krath'zon felt his blood turn to ice water. "What about Earth? We're monitoring from safe distance. The exclusion zone is in place, unless— No, don't tell me." The humans achieved faster-than-light travel. For a moment, Krath'zon couldn't breathe. How fast? 4 weeks ago, a small probe exited their solar system using some kind of spatial compression drive. Crude, but functional. "General, they're coming." "They don't even know we exist. We pulled out before making formal contact." "Apparently," Torvis continued, his voice strained, "they detected our observation satellites. They've been studying them, learning from them. General, they reverse-engineered our technology in 6 months. 6 months. It took our scientists 3 generations to develop that satellite network." Krath'zon sat down heavily. Of course they did. Of course the species that lived with honey badgers would look at alien technology and think it was a fun puzzle. "What do you need from me, Admiral?" "High Command wants you to lead a diplomatic mission. You're the only officer who's actually been to Earth and survived with your sanity mostly intact. We need someone who understands what we're dealing with. My sanity is questionable at best, which makes you our leading expert. Can you be at Fortress Station 12 in 3 days?" Krath'zon looked around his quiet retirement home. He'd planted a garden, learned to paint watercolors, started reading poetry. Normal, peaceful activities for a soldier who'd seen too much war. "I'll be there in 2, he said, because apparently he was an idiot. Fortress Station 12 orbited a strategic choke point between the Vexalian Empire's core systems and the vast unexplored regions where Earth drifted in its little corner of space. When Krath'zon arrived, the station was in controlled chaos. Ships from every major fleet group crowded the docking bays. Emergency defense grids were being erected. Marines drilled in zero-gravity combat maneuvers. Commander Velrus met him at the airlock. She looked older, though only half a cycle had passed. Stress did that to people. "General, thank the ancestors you're here. Command is losing their minds." "What's the current situation?" "Human vessel detected 3 hours ago, moving at 0.7 light speed using conventional drives. They're not even using their new FTL technology, which means they're either being cautious or they want us to see them coming." Smart, non-threatening approach. "What's their trajectory?" "Direct line to this station. They'll be in communications range in 6 hours. Krath'zon processed this. "So they know exactly where our major military installation is, and they're coming here specifically. Either they're suicidal or supremely confident." "There's more, sir." Velrus pulled up a holographic display. "We've been monitoring their global communications networks, news broadcasts, social media, government channels. General, they're treating this like an adventure." "An adventure?" "Their media is calling it First Contact, the musical. There are betting pools on what aliens look like. Children are drawing pictures of spaceships. One of their largest nations is selling commemorative T-shirts. General, they're not afraid of us at all." "Because they live with honey badgers," Krath'zon muttered. "Why would they fear anything after that?" 6 hours later, Krath'zon stood in the observation deck watching the human vessel approach. It was smaller than he expected. Cylindrical, covered in what appeared to be decorative patterns, and bizarrely, the image of a honey badger painted across the hull in garish colors. "They're hailing us," the communications officer reported. Put them through, visual and audio." The screen flickered to life, revealing the interior of the human ship. 3 humans sat in what looked like command chairs, though the entire bridge seemed far too casual for a military vessel. Plants in pots, photographs pinned to walls. Someone had hung fuzzy dice from an overhead control panel. The central human, a woman with short dark hair and skin the color of deep earth soil, smiled broadly. "Hello, this is Captain Maria Okonkwo of the Earth vessel Determination. We come in peace, friendship, and with a considerable amount of curiosity. Also snacks. We brought snacks." Krath'zon stared. Behind him, every Vexalian officer in the room stood in stunned silence. "You can see us, right?" Captain Okonkwo leaned forward. "Is this thing working? Dave, did you plug in the—" "It's plugged in, Captain," a male voice called from off-screen. "Then why aren't they— Oh, there you are. Wow, okay. You guys are tall. And is that 4 arms? That's amazing. Do you play musical instruments? Because 4-armed musicians would be incredible." Krath'zon struggled to form words. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. "I am General Krath'zon of the Vexalian Empire. You have entered restricted military space." "Oh, sorry about that." Okonkwo didn't sound particularly sorry. "We noticed your satellites around Earth about 6 months ago. Really cool tech, by the way. We learned a lot from them. Anyway, we figured you folks might want to chat, so we built this ship, pointed it in your direction, and here we are." "You built a faster-than-light vessel in 6 months." "Well, technically 4 months. The other 2 were paperwork and arguing about who got to be on the first crew. I won because I'm extremely persuasive and also cheated at rock, paper, scissors." Velrus leaned close to Krath'zon and whispered, "Is she joking?" "I genuinely cannot tell," Krath'zon admitted. "So," Okonkwo continued cheerfully, "we'd love to come aboard and meet you properly. Face to face, or face to faces since you have those mandible things. Very cool mandibles, by the way. Do they help with eating?" "Captain Okonkwo, I must inform you that your planet is classified as an exclusion zone. Your species is considered extremely dangerous." "Dangerous?" Okonkwo looked genuinely puzzled. "Us? We're harmless." "Well, mostly harmless. Okay, slightly harmful under specific circumstances, but generally friendly. You share your world with creatures that cannot be killed." "Oh!" Understanding dawned on Okonkwo's face. "You mean the honey badgers? You met Bartholomew." "Bartholomew?" "Local honey badger near where your troops landed. Big fellow. White stripe, permanent scowl. Doesn't care about much." "Yeah, he mentioned some aliens stopped by and then left in a hurry." Krath'zon felt reality tilt slightly. "The honey badger communicated with you?" No, we just found your scorch marks and figured out what happened. Bartholomew doesn't really communicate. He just exists aggressively in whatever space he occupies. But General, you can't judge all of Earth by our honey badgers. That's like judging your entire species by your scariest thing." "What is your scariest thing?" Velrus asked before she could stop herself. Okonkwo thought for a moment. "Probably geese." "Geese?" "Canadian geese specifically. They're birds, waterfowl, absolutely fearless, incredibly aggressive, and they travel in groups. We have warning signs about them. Children are taught evasive maneuvers." Krath'zon pulled up Earth's biological database and searched for geese. The entry showed a white and gray bird with a black neck and head. It weighed perhaps 5 kilograms. According to the description, it was herbivorous and primarily aquatic. It looked completely harmless. "Captain Okonkwo, our database indicates these geese are not predators. Neither are honey badgers technically, they're omnivores, but tell that to anything that gets between them and food. Same with geese, except geese are territorial, and they hold grudges. My grandmother was chased by a goose in 1987 and refused to go near that park for 30 years. "Your planet is insane," Krath'zon said flatly. "Yeah, it's pretty great. Anyway, can we dock? We've been in space for 3 weeks, and I'd really like to use a bathroom that doesn't recycle quite so aggressively, if you know what I mean. Against every military protocol, every survival instinct, and every shred of common sense. Krath'zon heard himself say, "Docking clearance granted. Bay 7, come unarmed and in small numbers." "Perfect. Just me and my crew. That's me, Dave our engineer, and Yuki our biologist. We'll leave the dangerous one on the ship." "Dangerous one?" Velrus's scales rippled with alarm. "Our cat, Mr. Whiskers. He's cranky about space travel and has already shredded 2 command chairs. See you in 20 minutes. The screen went dark. "General," Velrus said carefully, "did we just allow humans onto a military fortress?" "Yes, and they have a creature called Mr. Whiskers that they consider dangerous enough to leave on their ship." "Apparently. Should I alert security?" "Alert everyone. And Velrus, have medical standing by. I suspect we're going to need it." 23 minutes later, Captain Maria Okonkwo walked through the airlock like she owned the station. She was shorter than Krath'zon had expected, barely reaching his mid-torso, but she moved with absolute confidence. Behind her came Dave, a lanky man with red hair and freckles covering his pale skin, and Yuki, a woman with sharp features and dark eyes that cataloged everything they passed. "This is incredible!" Okonkwo spun in a circle, taking in the docking bay. "The architecture, the gravity plating, the atmospheric composition adjustment. You folks are way ahead of us technologically. Yet you achieved FTL travel in months," Krath'zon pointed out. "Necessity breeds innovation. Plus, we had your satellites to study. Thank you for those, by the way. Very educational." Those satellites were classified military technology. Were they? Whoops. Okonkwo didn't look remotely apologetic. "Well, no harm done. We only borrowed the concepts. Our FTL drive works completely differently. Dave can explain it. Dave, explain the thing." Dave stepped forward eagerly. "So we figured out that space-time is basically like fabric, right? And you guys were using traditional compression methods, which work but are energy-intensive. We asked ourselves, what if instead of compressing space, we just convinced it to fold differently?" "Convinced it," Velrus repeated. "Space is not a thinking entity." "Right, but matter and energy bend space-time. So if you arrange them in specific patterns, you can create persuasive arguments in the local space-time geometry. It's like origami, but with fundamental forces." Every Vexalian scientist in the bay was frantically taking notes. "You developed persuasive space-time origami," Krath'zon said slowly. "When you phrase it like that, it sounds silly," Dave admitted. "But yeah, basically. Our top researchers have spent generations on FTL theory. Maybe they were overthinking it. We find that helps sometimes. Ask a simple question, get a simple answer. Can't fold space? Try asking it nicely." Krath'zon was developing a headache. "Captain, what exactly do you want from this encounter?" "Honestly, we're curious. You visited Earth, looked around, and left really fast. We wanted to know why. Also, we'd like to establish diplomatic relations, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, maybe figure out if there are other species out here besides you folks. There are thousands of species in this sector alone." Okonkwo's face lit up like someone had given her the greatest gift imaginable. "Thousands? Oh, this is amazing. Yuki, did you hear that? Thousands of species. We need to meet them all." "Perhaps we should start with one," Yuki suggested diplomatically. "Captain, what my enthusiastic colleague means is that Earth has been alone for its entire existence. We had no idea anyone else was out here. Finding your satellites was the most exciting discovery in human history." "You weren't afraid?" Velrus asked. "Unknown alien intelligence observing your world. Why would we be afraid? We were fascinated. The possibilities, the questions, the potential for new friendships." Okonkwo paused. "Okay, some people were afraid. There were definitely panic moments, but mostly we were excited. Your world contains creatures that shrug off orbital bombardment, and you choose excitement over fear. Life's too short for fear, General. We learned that early. Earth is a challenging place. You adapt, you overcome. You make friends with the danger, or you curl up and give up. We chose adaptation." Krath'zon studied the 3 humans before him. They were small, fragile-looking, soft skin with no natural armor. Yet they carried themselves with the confidence of apex predators. No, he realized, not apex predators. Survivors. There was a difference. Captain Okonkwo, I feel compelled to inform you that 6 months ago, when we visited your planet, we encountered significant challenges. The honey badger thing, yeah. We figured that out from the evidence. Listen, about Bartholomew, he's really not that bad once you understand him. He survived an orbital strike. They're resilient little guys. Thick skin, powerful jaws, fearless attitude. Great for teaching children about determination and not backing down from challenges. You teach your children about honey badgers? Sure. Educational programs, nature documentaries, wildlife conservation efforts. Kids love them. They're like furry little tanks that don't care about anything. Krath'zon turned to Velrus. They use unkillable murder creatures as educational tools for their young. I'm starting to understand why they achieved FTL so quickly, Velrus muttered. Nothing seems impossible when you live with that. So, Okonkwo clasped her hands together. Can we talk about establishing formal relations? We brought gifts. Dave, grab the gift basket. Dave retrieved a container from their ship and presented it with a flourish. Inside were various items: coffee beans, chocolate, hot sauce, honey, and a stuffed toy that looked like a honey badger. These represent Earth culture, Okonkwo explained. Coffee for energy, chocolate for happiness, hot sauce because we eat poison for fun, honey because bees are amazing, and the plushie because we thought you might want a less aggressive version to remember us by. Krath'zon picked up the toy honey badger. It was soft, cute even. Its beady little eyes were rendered in a friendly, cartoonish style. He squeezed it, and it made a cheerful chirping sound. The real Bartholomew would eat this. Captain, the Vexalian Empire will need time to consider formal diplomatic relations. Your species is unprecedented. We'll wait. Not here, obviously. We should probably head home and let you folks process. But we'll keep in touch. We installed a communicator on one of your satellites, so we can chat whenever you want. You modified our satellite. Just a tiny modification, barely noticeable. Dave was very careful. Dave gave an enthusiastic thumbs up. Return to Earth, Krath'zon said, exhausted. We will contact you when the Empire has reached a decision. Sounds good. Oh, one more thing. Okonkwo reached into her pocket and pulled out a data chip. This contains information about Earth. Geography, cultures, languages, biology. We figured you might want actual facts instead of just satellite observations. Consider it a gesture of goodwill. She handed the chip to Krath'zon, who accepted it numbly. It's been wonderful meeting you, General. You too, Commander Velrus, and everyone else. We're going to tell everyone back home about this. They're going to be so jealous. The 3 humans headed back to their ship, chattering excitedly among themselves. Krath'zon watched them go, still holding the toy honey badger and the data chip. Sir, Velrus ventured, what do we tell High Command? The truth, that we've made contact with humanity, that they're friendly, curious, and completely terrifying in ways they don't even recognize. And the diplomatic relations? Krath'zon looked at the stuffed toy in his hand. Somewhere on Earth, the real version of this creature was probably eating something venomous and not caring about it. And humans just lived with that, thrived alongside it, built societies, developed technology, reached for the stars while sharing their world with nature's answer to the question nobody asked. Approve it, he said finally, but on one condition. Sir, they leave the honey badgers on Earth. 3 months later, the Vexalian Empire and Earth signed the first interspecies treaty in human history. Trade routes were established. Cultural exchanges began. Human engineers started helping other species solve problems through what they called creative stubbornness, a term that made perfect sense once you understood their background. General Krath'zon, reluctantly pulled out of retirement again, became Earth's primary liaison. He learned to drink coffee, though he never understood why humans enjoyed consuming bitter stimulants. He tried chocolate and admitted it was pleasant. He refused to go anywhere near the hot sauce. And on his desk, in his office aboard Fortress Station 12, he kept the stuffed honey badger Captain Okonkwo had given him. Sometimes, late at night when the station was quiet, he'd look at it and remember the day his army broke. The day 2,000 trained soldiers fled from 11 kilograms of mammal. The day he learned that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than military conquest had ever shown him. Earth remained classified as a death world. But now, instead of a warning, it was a badge of pride. Humans wore the designation like an achievement. They made T-shirts about it. Their tourism board used it as a slogan. Visit Earth, Death World Certified. And throughout the sector, other species began to wonder, if humans could thrive on a death world, what else might be possible? What other challenges could be overcome? What other impossibilities could be convinced to fold differently? The universe got a little less scary and a lot more interesting the day humanity joined it. Krath'zon squeezed the toy honey badger. It chirped happily. Somewhere on Earth, Bartholomew was probably terrorizing something, and humanity was probably documenting it for educational purposes. The universe would never be the same. And, honestly, that was perfectly fine.